So that's another thing I've loved about unschooling is that as I allow my children to follow the natural sparks of curiosity that they have, and your children will have them, you can bank on it. Like, your children were literally wired to learn. They're learning from the moment they exit the womb, and nothing can stop them unless you intentionally beat that curiosity out of them. So this is where I'm saying you trust your children. Like, you trust that innate, built-in impulse to be curious and to learn and to seek information and knowledge and skills. Holy Wild Birth is a podcast embracing the reclamation of giving birth, rooted in God's original design, undisturbed.
Here, we share home birth stories highlighting God's presence as the great midwife, as well as conversations about all aspects of a holistic, spirit-led childbearing year. From the perspectives of myself, traditional midwife Lauren Hall of Rooted in Eden Private Contract Association,
and me, holistic doula and birthkeeper Brooke Collier of Sister Birth.
To choose a holy wild birth journey is to consecrate all your decisions unto the Lord.
And to reclaim creation unadulterated by centuries of human attempts to control and improve upon what God has already called good.
Please remember, birth is not a medical event, but a natural process. We are not your care providers, and this should not be taken as medical advice.
Hey, friend.
Hello.
Here we are. I'm excited about this episode. It's going to be a little bit off of our usual, but also not. But we're here to talk about how we educate our children that you might expect to be on a birth podcast. But we think it's very related. And we're excited to draw connections and dive into this. Yeah?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a topic I would say both of us are very passionate about, just as much as we are passionate about birth. Are we passionate about the education of our children? And I think that's probably why there's so much interlinking, because both of them are really about our life, how we live our life, not necessarily a specific prescription, right? The right way. We don't have a prescription for the right way to birth or a prescription for the right way to educate our children, but both are truly an as designed type of outlook, in my opinion. Like, we're seeing that, like, this is how we were designed to birth. This is how we were designed to learn. Like, let's follow the physiological design of the brain, and like, this is how they develop. Let's support that. So I think that is why it interconnects so well with birth in our minds. Not to say, just like with, birth, there's lots of different opinions on this. We're not trying to tell you the right way or the wrong way to school your children, but just find it a fascinating topic. And we see so much overlying in that. And we had a really interesting and intriguing conversation with other birth workers, and we're like, hey, this is a topic we should be talking about. So I think that's why so I just want to make sure that that we're not saying that you have to school this way, because we are passionate about it. So you're going to hear some of our passion on this topic for sure. But yeah, I think it's fascinating and fun to dive in, and really, I think it can open us up into freedom, in new ways. So I think that's really what it's all about.
Yeah. And trust, for me, is a big piece of it.
Yeah.
But let's back it up a little. Let's talk about I had a lot of misconceptions. Lauren and I both practiced something called unschooling with our children before I was doing it and before I knew. The misconception can be that it just means, like, basically parental laziness and educational neglect, that you're essentially just not going to try. You just raise yourselves. Because I think it almost sounds like, and it's for that reason, it's not even my favorite word for it, because it does position us as like, we're not doing this, but what are we doing? Like, it kind of
Right.
sounds like there's this void. There's not a
Yeah.
void. So I've heard other terms for it as like child-led learning, self-directed learning. What are some other terms you've heard for it that you prefer
Life-schooling.
or enjoy?
Yeah. Life schooling or life-led, life-led schooling and child-led learning. But yeah, I tend to use life schooling, I think, the most, or life-led education. Because it
Yeah.
really is. It is that whole, it is unschooling in the sense that schooling is not education. It's not I'm more interested in how their brain is learning, right? Like, that's why I use learning. I'm talking about them learning and them growing and them developing through life and through, how they just unfurl into this world and find their place. And, schooling is really, in my, again, harsh words here, but schooling, in my opinion, is so much like the public school system. And then people, again, I'm sorry if this feels hard to you, but the pervading homeschooling culture is just public school at home. And so you just have this like repetitive thing that schooling was just designed to like beat the love of learning out of them, and so that they would become what society wanted them to do, so that they could fit into the, industrial revolution's factory line work. And they wanted unquestioning robots, and I don't want that for my children. I don't want to integrate into that system, which is very similar to the birth world. I don't want to integrate into that system. And so that's why that's the schooling that we're talking about when we're saying we're unschooling. We're not saying we're uneducating. We're saying we're not wanting that system. But like you were saying, I much prefer, to speak about what we do want to do rather than what we don't want to do. So even though unschooling is like the bigger, the more used word, I guess, or the longer it's been used longer, so it's more well known. It's definitely, there's been lots of other terms that are coming up to the surface that kind of bear why we're doing it versus standing on the objection side of things.
And it should be noted that one of the pioneers, I guess, who like kind of laid a foundation for some like more well-developed theory around this way of letting children learn is John Holt. He's often like referred to by a lot of unschoolers as kind of like the originator of it. Whether he deserves that title in full, I'm not totally sure. But if you do want to dive into his books, that is one good resource. But the whole the whole schooling system also has these artificial divisions between topics. Like, now we will do science. Now we will do history. Now we will do reading. Now we will do writing. Now we will do math. And that's not how it works in the world. So that's another thing I've loved about unschooling, is that as I allow my children to follow the natural sparks of curiosity that they have, and your children will have them, you can bank on it. Like, your children were literally wired to learn. They're learning from the moment they exit the womb, and nothing can stop them unless you intentionally beat that curiosity out of them. So this is where I'm saying you trust your children. Like, you trust that innate, built-in impulse to be curious and to learn and to seek information and knowledge and skills. They will do it. So as they do that, like, for instance, one of my children is very into bushcraft. I don't know if you don't know what bushcraft is. It's like basically using natural materials to create structures in forests and to forage and to cook from their land and all these things. In her pursuit of bushcraft, you'd be shocked at how much naturally she learns history and math and physics and like social studies. Even like, she'll make these little societies with her siblings out in the woods. Like, now we have a money system, now we have a law system, right? Like, in order to build some of the structures she builds, she's naturally learning about physics and like engineering. And then she's starts digging into like how people used to live in other times or how they live in different places. And then you're getting into like cross-cultural studies and history. So like all the subjects are absolutely connected. And so removing them out of these artificial like boxes that we put them in the school system, it's just like the neurons, you can almost see them connecting, like, and cross-connecting in the brain in a way that subject-based schooling approach cannot ever replicate. And it's like, their brains are just, you can just see it, they're lit up, and like and there's no forcing it because it's natural, they're naturally flowing into that. I am shocked on the regular by the things my children are like, did you know blah, 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 blah? I'm like, I did not know. Things I did not know that. How did you learn that? Well, I was Googling XYZ and then I learned this and this.
Yeah.
It's pretty beautiful. Like, it's quite beautiful.
It's so very true. It's so very true. I mean, my children, it's the same way here. Like, they've all found, some topic that has just exploded their mind, and it branches into everything. It totally reminds me of, how much of the world has separated, especially like in healthcare. We've separated out to like the systems of the body. Like, okay, I do cardio, I do obstetrics, I do, and then in the midst of that, it's like, yes, have specialty, great, that's awesome. There's a time and a place to have someone who really has niched down in their education, but then in the midst of that, they've lost the interconnectedness of the body, right? Like, there's this overlay that happens, and when you're really passionate about something and you really can dive into it, you end up branching into everything else because there is an overlay. We are interconnected beings, and there is this, I don't know, it's really fascinating, because I know when I started getting into unschooling, I was worried that, will my child ever learn to read? Will my child ever learn to math? What about the things they don't like? Will they learn those topics? And the way life is, like, they will have to, like, and that will be, there's an internal motivator for them to learn it versus an external motivator telling them they have to learn it. Now, all of a sudden, what they want to learn has brought them up against the things that they didn't necessarily want to learn, and it became something they wanted to learn now because it was a gateway to get to what they wanted to. I saw that with reading, especially. All my kids have learned at different ages of reading. I have had as late as 12, 13, and as early as 5. It was they all received relatively, actually the ones that learned later were the ones that I tried to teach far earlier and younger in their years, and kind of interrupted their playtime to teach them to read. And they're actually all my later readers. My earlier readers were the ones I was completely hands off with. And it's been really interesting to see which ones, like, what got them to reading was all very different. My oldest, it was largely because he started having blocks in what he was wanting to learn about how to build some things in Minecraft, and being able to read some signs, and being able to read some tutorials and things. And like, all of a sudden he was like, I need to read. And so, like, literally within a weekend, all of a sudden he was reading. And now I can't get the kid to stop reading. Like, he reads massive novels weekly, like, going to the library is Christmas morning. When we on actual Christmas morning, I gave him like 3 books, and they were done before the end of the week. Like, he like, just it like ekes out of him. If you don't know where he is, he's in his bed under a blanket reading. Like, that's where he is. And or he's, like, if that's just like where he's always at. It's hilarious. And I remember thinking he was never going to learn to read, and now here he is, won't stop. And so it is kind of tying it back, like, it is about trusting that process, and watching them unfurl, which is so much like the trust in the process of birth, right? Like, we don't realize what we're capable of anymore because we've been told it had to be like this, and it fit in this box, and we don't even know what normal is anymore in birth, because we've niched it down to, this is what we can control and contain in the system. This is how we can help multiple people at one time. So we have to systemize it and add our protocols, because we don't have space to individualize things, just by the mere fact of it being an industry, like multiple women are coming in at the same time. So we've removed that relationship and the individuality. Whereas when you're life-led learning, you have that individual relationship with your child, and you can really see what they're needing and what they, like how to give them resources so that they can continue to unfurl into what it is that they're.
Yeah. We essentially end up midwifing our children.
Yes,
I never actually thought until just this moment, but that's kind of what it is. Like, I always tell people, my job isn't to be my children's teacher. My job is to be their facilitator and their resourcer. So for me to notice, oh, look what God has put in you. Look what he's lighting up in you. Okay, how can I resource that so that you can continue to pursue that? And how can I facilitate that and make space for that, which is what a midwife does, right? Midwifing them through what they're birthing into the world, like, and who they're being born into being. And in natural birth land, we talk about we don't induce because we know the baby knows when to be born. Like, trust your baby knows when to be born. Then can you carry that on? I trust that my child knows when they're ready to learn to read. I trust that my child knows when it's time for them to know math. So that's that trust piece for me, that it started for me in how I birthed my children, and trusting my own body and trusting them through the birth process. Then the natural extension of that, I think, is trusting them through their unfolding in general, academically and otherwise. So that's where the connections are. Those are where the connections are. The same work that you had to do to leave the medical system with all of its regulation and its paradigm shift to move into autonomous, undisturbed birth. It's a very similar paradigm shift around the topic of education.
It's so true. It's so true. I guess to kind of dive deeper into what does this actually look like in your home, for us, I mean, we have, I think a lot of people think, oh, you're just not doing anything. And it is actually, I think, sometimes more work in some ways, and yet less work in some ways. Like, it's this paradox, because when they ask a question and when they're ready to learn something, it's like all hands on deck. I wasn't planning on doing this right now, but this is what we're doing, and yet it's seamless in life. And so then it's like, but I didn't have to prepare anything, and I didn't have to, it's like all of a sudden we're just learning, right? Like, this is a fascinating conversation and let's have it. And so it's like, but you have to be, I think it's less work in the sense of you're not doing all the preparation and I have to figure out what they need to learn stuff. But it not really more work, but I guess the mindset of being ready to be responsive to your children. You have to be so responsive to them in order for them to have access to life and be able to be a life-led learner, which is very different than our society has allowed us to, it's okay, the children go to school and then they'll be back, and this is the time that I hang out with them, and this is the time for dinner, and this is the time, and it's so scheduled, and there's it's not necessarily against routines, but the strict schedule, because you have to be scheduled if you're going to do those things to get everything out. But this way is so much more organic, but also requires that you're way more I don't know. I was actually at I did a
which can be exhausting,
midwifery conference,
I'll be honest.
and I was driving there, and so I got to stop at a friend's house, and she's like homeschooling her kids, but she keeps like, I want to unschool. I want to do this life-led learning thing, but I don't know how. Like, how can I branch into this? And, I always kind of talk to them about goals And, we have these big goals that we have by the time they leave the house, like these are our goals, right? But it is this responsiveness. And then I actually got to like show her because her child asked me how old I was. And so instead of answering, because it had come up in the middle of a conversation, I don't remember exactly what it was, but somewhere in it was like, mom's age was this and dad's age was this. And he was like, oh, so how old are you? And I was like, well, I'm between your mom. I'm older than your mom and I'm younger than your dad. And he was like, okay. And so then he was like trying to guess my age. And then he didn't quite immediately get it. And so I was like, well, I said, I'm older than your mom. I kept just repeating myself. I'm older than your mom. I'm younger than your dad. And my age is closer to your dad's age than it is to your mom's age. And he was like, okay. And he was like so invested. He was like, okay, I'm going to figure this out. And so then we ended up pulling out a 100 number chart that she had. And I was like, okay, so where's your mom's age? And where's your dad's age? And so does that mean, could I be 26? Well, no. Okay, well, could I be 98? No. Like, why? Because it's hot, and so he was like figuring it out. And I just kept asking questions to help him. And so then we get into the actual line, that I am like I'm between, I don't remember what their ages were at this point, but we're just gonna make them up now. So it was like 32 and no, I think it was 34 and 39. And so then I'm like, okay, I'm closer to your dad's age. And he was just like narrowing it down. So then we were like, could I be 35? If your mom's 34, could I be 35? He's like, no. And I'm like, why? And he's counting out because that would only be one closer to mom and 5 closer to dad, and so he's like figuring it out. And mom is over there just like, whoa, that's how you unschool? Okay, like I get it. She was like, you just taught me while you taught him because I didn't, and it wasn't planned out. Like it was just a moment that had happened. And that's how I always teach my kids. And so my daughter who went with us, she's sitting there next to us watching the whole thing, kind of like going, yeah, she's not going to tell you how old she is. Like that's not going to happen because she's seen me do this with them all the time. She was like, yeah, this is how mom teaches us. She makes us learn. It makes us think about it and opens up our brains, like she recognized the process. And so she actually started talking to the mom of like, yeah, she does this all the time. It's really annoying, but that's how we learn.
That's so good. That's such a great
So,
example. I love that.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like people it's you have to deschool because I often find when people are interested in unschooling, they're like, okay, so tell me how to do it. Like, what's the technique? Which is still the school mindset, right? Like, where's the curriculum for the not having curriculum? Like, how do you even move past the need for the playbook? Because there isn't really a playbook. And it's like asking the wrong question. But it is a massive paradigm shift, and it feels frightening. It feels frightening.
Mm-hmm.
And even learning how to ask the right question. So if this is something you're considering and interested in, I just be really gentle with yourself and recognize that there might be a year or more during which time you feel like I'm floundering. We aren't doing anything. This isn't working. I'm not sure this is right. Like that deschooling process can be really uncomfortable. But I'm here to say that if you ride it out and read good material to kind of like reinforce the why and understand the benefits of this and the research behind that, even on the other side of that discomfort is something really, really lovely and life-giving and freeing. And it's worth the discomfort.
It is. It's so good. Like that deschooling, especially if your kids have ever been in a public school system, or you've done public school at home and you're really like trying to integrate into this type of learning, your child's going to have to deschool as well. And I think that process, it's almost longer. The deschooling process ends up being longer if your child has been exposed to that. type of learning because they have to find how to become curious again. Like it has to turn back on. And so you have to wait for that to come back
And
on.
how to be
Whereas if you're
bored.
starting, right, how to be bored. I love when my kids are bored. Like, I love it because that's when the magic starts to happen. If I can hold my like instinct to like fix it for them, but rather allow them to be bored and allow, okay, well, what are you gonna do with that? Nope, we're not doing screens right now. Sorry, like, what you gonna do? Do you want me to find you some chores to do at the house? Like, I can, we need the dishes need to be done, or I was actually noticing that the windows are really dirty, and sometimes they'll take me up on that and they'll just absolutely do the chore. But like, I tend to find things that I know that they're not going to want to do and be like, if you want me to find something to do, you could do this. And they're like, oh, never mind, Mom. And I'm like, okay, well, let me know. And very lighthearted, not like like it's not you came to be bored, so now you have to. Like, it's a very like, well, I got things you could do. They're like, no, I'll find something. Never mind. They will go and like all of a sudden, like they're creating something or they're building something or they've, like, and then they get their siblings involved and then they have this whole like going, they don't even realize they're learning and yet they are. And it's just really beautiful, the projects that come out of the I'm bored stage.
So much.
It's so good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's so good. It's where it truly is where the magic happens. If you can let them sit with it. And then ultimately that's so empowering to them. I think it shows them that they are the agents of their own lives and that they can make of it what they want to make of it. There's so much freedom and power there. And every once in a while when my kids are around more conventionally schooled children, I think that's when they also start to realize how different and beautiful what they have is. Like they operate differently. They move through the world differently than their conventionally schooled peers. And there's children are wonderful children, but there's just real different fruit, I guess, the two different approaches. Yeah. And because kids won't learn what they don't care about. Like, you can go through all the subjects, and if they aren't ready for it, if they don't have like an like a connection, it doesn't connect to anything for them, it's just going to go through their brain. You can have the most beautiful like homeschooling session around your dining room table with candles and worksheets and manipulatives, and like it's not going to stay there until it matters to them, until it connects with something else in their brain that they care about. So
it's true.
Yeah. And so when you like Lauren and I are both teachers too, right? Like, I teach childbirth education. Lauren like does too, and we have Hearthmother Journey, and Lauren has an anointed midwifery unschool. It's even in the name. This way of thinking trickles into all the things that we do, because we really believe that even for adults, this is how adults learn also. Is through freedom and within like general facilitation. So we facilitate and we mentor, we resource, and then we say, it's for you to explore within this container and whatever other offshoots you want to go down. And then just watch your brain light up as you make the interconnections and grow at the pace and in the directions that you are primed for and ready for. And it's
it's so true. Like we, even as moms, we see it as we are preparing for our own birth, and women in this viewpoint of birth, right? And that whether they're just kind of on the fringe of undisturbed birth or like fully in like, I'm going to be a free birther or what, like whatever their path they are for their preparing for their birth. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably, like I said, you're probably on the fringe. And what I notice with most women in this arena is that they're passionate about learning about birth. They're like full blown birth nerds, right? Like, and no one had to tell you that you needed to go learn this book, right? Like if I say, hey, you should read this book, you're like, yes, please give me the book. I want to read it, right? This person's like, there's a podcast on that topic and you're like, yes, please, I'm going to go listen to it, right? Nobody's forcing you to go learn about this topic because you want to. And like, there's a normally something in life that caused you to want to learn to it. There was a catalyst, right? But now there's a passion and now you can't get enough. And it's the same thing we happen with our children, and we can set up our lives in a way that we are ready for them to have a catalyst, and we're looking for that catalyst and being ready to give them all of those resources. And then it's the same for like if you want to become a midwife or a birth keeper of some sort. Like I kept seeing this place of when I set up AMU, I was like, there's so many midwifery schools that the learning was so dry. There was not any passion behind it, right? And it was so much like you can only learn what I tell you to learn, and this is what you need to know to be a midwife, versus like, what is God bringing forth for you right now to learn? Because he knows what's coming your way, because he knows the women that are what you need to know to serve these women well. The ability to just like have your learning completely in your own hands and you're in the driver's seat of it. And yes, there are specific things that you should learn, but accessing them in a different way, that your mind was completely open to it versus, and like your interest was sparked to it versus like, oh, I have to learn this because it's the lesson we're in, and this is the topic I'm supposed to learn to pass the test to get the grade so that somebody can mark, stamp me, yep, I'm a midwife, go me, like
right.
That information slips through your mind. It does not stay. If your mind was not active and on when you were ready to learn that information, even if it is pertaining to the subject you wanted to learn about, it still doesn't stick the same. Like your brain didn't know that it was important to hold on to. It's like, okay, we're learning this to pass the test. We pass the test. Great. And then it loses it because the reason you learned it, your brain knew, was to pass the test. It didn't realize it was something that you wanted to hold on to. And there's definitely some higher neurological words I could have used to explain that. Like, but that's a real philosophy, a real thing that happens within our brain. And so I don't know where I was going with that specifically. I guess that's why I created AMU, I wanted
in the way
help,
that you did. Yeah.
Right. In the way that I did this curriculum guide so that they could be like, okay, this is what's coming up for me. I'm going to go to that section of the curriculum guide and dive deeper and learn more about that. And I always tell my students, like, if you're not in control of your own learning and really passionate about doing this and taking personal responsibility for even your learning journey and, even your continuing education, right? I'm going to stay abreast because it's of integrity of myself. I'm going to stay abreast of current research and what's going on in the birth world, and that personal responsibility to show up well translates to how can you expect the women you're serving to take personal responsibility for their birth if you couldn't even take personal responsibility for how to serve them? It's the same thing.
Yep.
The roots are the same, and so I think that's why I see it the same as how I'm supporting my children. I want them to really find their path in life for, like, what did God put in them? What are their passions and their giftings, and what is their call? And how can I support that now? Like, we don't talk about what do you want to do when you grow up. We talk about what right now? What is God saying to you right now? What's happening in your life now? Because I believe they're fully living life. That I don't believe in a junior Holy Spirit. I don't believe that they're not fully people yet. They don't have to grow up to be. They are something right now. They are a human right now, and they are impacting their world right now. And so we talk about it in the present tense, like, well, what do you want to
Yeah.
be? What are you awesome? You want, let's learn about being a firefighter then, like, okay, like if it doesn't matter if it's a realistic, for the longest time, my kid wanted to be a YouTuber. So we were like, okay, let's learn about videography and let's learn about, and now he doesn't want to be a YouTuber, but the things he learned in the time period that was his passion was really phenomenal,
Mhm.
and he learned a
Yeah.
little, just about all sorts of things. And so, it's really interesting when
Mhm.
you fully step away from the system and just embrace trusting the process and being in freedom to, like, who they want to be and who they are and who God has created them to be. I think you see them flourish so much faster, and they're just thriving in life. And I always say they're not ready to learn something unless they're ready. They can learn it in a weekend.
Yeah. That's good. They're not ready to learn till they can learn it in a weekend.
Yeah, I had a mom, like a homeschooling mom. Like, I don't know if I read it. It was like a blog. I remember it being a very personal story that she shared that wisdom from, but I've adopted it since. I don't remember if it was a mom in a co-op or in just like a unschooling blog of some sort. It really impacted me, and I've carried that, and I've seen it to be true. When they're ready to learn, it's like,
Mhm.
I get it now. And it's
Yeah.
a light bulb that's
Yep.
on. Not that there's not some precursors that have happened that have led them to that, but, like, sometimes you do sit down to learn something because they've decided they want to learn it, and you sit down and they do
Mhm.
something that feels a little bit more academic.
100%.
And
Mhm.
because that was the way to access it. It's not that we're against
Yep.
workbooks or curriculums or whatever. I have so much curriculum in my house, but it's all resources. It's not, we go through this at this pace. Like,
Yeah.
we have it as
It's not
resource.
driving the bus. It's just there
Right.
to serve if you want to pull over
Mhm.
and take a
Yeah.
break to use it. Like, and
Right.
the child is
Exactly.
asking for it, then yeah, they can do that. Like, you're never going to be like, no, you can't take a class. Like, no.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
just it
Yeah.
it needs to
Sometimes they
support the
have taken
child
a
instead of
class.
the child being like directed by it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I have a friend
Mhm.
who's like, my unschooler loves workbooks. I'm like, okay, good. Give them workbooks then. Fine. Whatever. Like,
Yep.
we're not dogmatic in
Mhm.
the way of how they have to learn it, learn their things. Like, it's um, to the extreme of, I've seen something like, we never use workbooks. Like, if the kid is asking for a workbook and wants to use a workbook, and they love writing things down and keeping it ordered, and maybe they're an accountant. I don't know. Like, give the kid a workbook. He wants a workbook, whatever. So it doesn't have to be your ideal of what you think unschooling is going to
Yeah.
be. It's just about the kid being led by their life and their love, um, their passions.
Yep. Absolutely. So I hope this kind of inspires you who are listening to just sit on it, think about it, pray about it. It might not be for you, it might, but it was really fun for me to share our passion and excitement about this topic. I do feel quite passionate about it. And we
Yep.
just wanted to let you also know, if you're listening to this, that if this kind of like does make sense to you on some level, if you're not sure maybe if it makes sense for your kids yet, but it makes sense for you as an adult, and you are one of those people who are feeling that tug to, like, you just can't get enough of the birth stuff, like you're the birth nerd, the insatiable birth nerd, we want you to know that Hearthmother Journey is something that is available to you guys.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like, it's not full on unschooling, but it's like bridging to the full on unschooling of Lauren's Anointed
Yeah.
Midwifery Unschool. And it lays a foundation for self-directed learning, I think, in a really beautiful way around the subject of
Mhm.
serving women in their childbearing year, pregnancy, birth, and postpartum, holistically rooted in Jesus, the way of the Hearth Mother. And you get to make it what you want it to be. Like, we have curriculum that drips out, and it's good to keep pace with it as best as you can. So you're going through it with your cohort and benefiting from the community engagement of that. But you have access to the content forever, and you can circle back around to it at different times, go through it out of order. When something is in season and you suddenly have a burning desire to know about a subject, revisit that part of the course about that subject. Because learning is not linear, and it's not like check, 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 check. We acknowledge there's a spirally kind of like webby. That's what education is for us, and so that shows up in Hearthmother Journey, and we're excited to be opening up our second cohort of that to start on October 2nd.
Yes. It's been really fun to see the students in Hearthmother Journey like walk through that transformation, kind of coming in expecting a very like linear course and a very like, okay, tell me what to learn, tell me what I need, and then we're giving them, I mean, yes, there's been very directed course content, and it's like, we think you should go through it in this order, but there's also these like resource roles for like, hey, if this sparked your interest and you want to like spiral down it, they get these resource roles at the end of all the modules that they can just really dive deeply into them. And they don't have to if they don't want to, and that's fine too. And watching them kind of go, I'm behind. And I'm like, who told you were behind? Why do you think you're behind? Like, you can't be behind in your learning. Like, this is your life. You're exactly where you're supposed to be in your learning because that's where you are. Like, why are you comparing yourself to someone else? There is no behind. You can't be behind yourself.
Well, and it's not even just their learning, it's their becoming process.
Right.
Where they're becoming. You're not just learning, you're becoming. And the learning is only part of that becoming. So, yeah, so you can't be behind.
Right, exactly. And so it's been fun to see that transformation, like not just these women coming in to like learn how to be a birth servant, but watching these women learning how to be their authentic selves in the birth room for birth, in a way that is serving others as well, but like how they can be authentically, like I said, themselves and serving God, with who He created them to be. Like it's been like watching them unfurl, like we've been watching our children unfurl into, and I've seen some women come in and be like, wow, I thought I was going to do this, but I realized that I actually want to do, X instead of Z. And I didn't even know that this existed. And they're just, their brains are lighting up, and it's a beautiful thing to watch this transformation. I think that's my favorite thing. It's not just about, like our tagline is raising up the next generation of holy, wild birth keepers. It's not just about raising up birth keepers, but holy and wild birth keepers. Like they are authentically themselves and authentically serving the King of Kings. And I think that's how unschooling has connected to Hearthmother Journey. I think Hearthmother Journey needed to be the bridge into AMU. That's why it is the prerequisite now. It was a lot for some to come into AMU and have a very like schooled background and expecting a school, and not an unschool. And so they were, it needed a deschooling process. And it's almost like this is Hearthmother Journey has served as a bit of a deschooling, as well as a path, a firm path to walk on, but like also an opportunity to just explore the wild of birth as well.
Yeah. Yes. It shows up so nicely. Our students have to make final projects, but they develop their own final project. So we don't tell them what it is. Well, one of the projects is pretend 3 births while you're enrolled, but the other one can be whatever. And it's been incredible to see what the students are dreaming up, like without our direction. And I think that's one of the places where the really taking ownership and the self-directed learning is really shining, is in the development of those final projects. Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really cool to see them. Like at the beginning, they were like, we have to come up with our project? Like, well, I don't know what I'll do. I don't know. And I'm like, it's okay. You're not like, But what is the Lord leading you into doing? What do you want to get out of this? Like, what's your big goal? And, then, and allow it to, like, start thinking about it, start like, simmering on, and then to see, like, people who were at the beginning going, I don't, like, it's almost like they felt like they didn't even have a capacity to come up with a new idea. Now, like, bursting with, can I do more than one project? Is that okay if I submit like 3 because I can't figure out which one I want to do the most? And I'm like, girl, you go for it. Like, just whatever, So it's just really, I think that's the biggest thing for me, is that transformation. Less about, like, are you going to learn about how to be a doula? Yeah, you will. But, like, ultimately, walking through Hearthmother Journey is about transforming into the authentic, holy, wild birth keeper, birth servant for the Lord, the handmaiden of the Lord, and really awakening, I think, a dream of what birth could be if we all embraced, this, like, revolution around birth being His design.
Yeah. Even if you don't attend births, we have a lot of students, I just want to say, who are not in a season to be on call and attend births.
Mm-hmm.
But they are still here and they're engaging and learning because their mind's already there. They're curious. They want to pursue the subjects, and they recognize, I think, or are starting to recognize more and more, that even this season when they can't be attending births, because that's really a tiny, tiny part of what it means to be a birth servant. Like, the actual
Truly.
birth is a tiny part of it. Like,
Truly.
but while I'm waiting and have tiny children at home and I'm breastfeeding and I'm not on call, I can serve women in this way and this way and this way and this way and this way. There's like this, it's, the possibilities are so endless, and it's such a discipleship program that, like, at the very least, they're sowing into pursuing the Lord and knowing how to hear Him and how to wait on Him and how to ask good questions with Him and listen to His will for their lives, and how they can practice serving and coming alongside and being their community's wise woman in all these different small, seemingly unremarkable ways, while they wait for the day when maybe the Lord will open up a time and they can be on call and attend births too. So don't let it disqualify you if you're like, I'm interested in this, but I know I can't be on call right now. It is not too soon at all to indulge the curiosity and the process of becoming, even if being on call is years away for you. So just wanted to add that little note.
Absolutely. Yeah, because we have I think the 3 birth project has turned off some people thinking, I can't do this because I can't attend births. But then you just do a different project. Like, if you can't do that, then you do 2 projects instead of 1. But yeah, absolutely.
We'll put the link, of course, to Hearthmother Journey's info page below this episode, or in the show notes, I mean. And there is a button on there right now for a waitlist, because enrollment's not quite open. Enrollment will be opening in the end of August. So that's not very far away. And those who are on that wait list first, we are positioned to get some of those spots. If you are interested in that, you'll get first chance at that.
And then I was going to say, I'm circling it back to the unschooling thing to say, we'll also find some of our favorite book recommendations around unschooling. If you are more interested in learning more about that philosophy, we'll put some of our favorite book recommendations in the show notes for you.
Absolutely. So thanks for being here, friends. Thanks for listening.
Yes.
We'll see you next time.
Okay. Next time.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Holy Wild Birth. We hope that you were genuinely encouraged, inspired, and challenged by what you heard today. If you're loving what you hear, please make sure that you share it. Leave reviews. That helps other mamas find this content as well. And don't forget to read the show notes, okay? Because that's where you can find our email address if you want to reach out to us and start a conversation. It's also where you'll find free offerings as well as invitations to work with me and or Lauren. We can't wait to get to know you. See you next week.